All right, so get this. We're diving deep into Bitcoin predictions today. And these sources are bringing some serious heat. It's all tied up with Donald Trump's recent win. And we've got one source practically throwing a ticker tape parade for this so-called Trump effect on Bitcoin.
What's really striking is how they're tying political events to Bitcoin's price swings. It's a good reminder that crypto isn't playing by its own rules. It's part of the same global economic game.
Right. It's not just about the tech anymore. This first source is claiming that Trump's known pro-crypto stance, plus that ever-present Elon Musk factor, could create like a perfect storm for Bitcoin to absolutely explode. They're even using the term supercycle. Like, we're about to enter some legendary bull run.
Okay, so let's break that down. When they talk about a supercycle, think back to the dot-com boom. But for crypto, it's this idea that Bitcoin will weave itself so deeply into the global financial system that its value just skyrockets. But remember, the dot-com boom eventually went bust?
Exactly. So is this source just caught up in the hype? Or are there signs we're actually headed for a super cycle? What would that even look like?
Well, a super cycle isn't just about price going up. We'd need to see massive adoption, not just by individuals, but by big institutions like banks and hedge funds. We'd need to see real-world uses for Bitcoin expanding beyond just speculation. And frankly, that's a lot of ifs.
So while Bitcoin to the moon sounds fun, we should probably take a deep breath and look at the evidence. This source is pretty light on the details. What about the potential downsides? Because let's be real, every investment has risks.
Right, and crypto is famous for its volatility. What happens if this super cycle fizzles out? What if governments clamp down with regulations? The source doesn't really address any of that.
Okay, so maybe a little less ticker tape parade and a little more critical thinking are in order. Now, our second source takes a different approach. They're not putting all their chips on the Trump effect. Instead, they're focused on technical analysis. And they're suggesting that Bitcoin's recent price surge, smashing past 80,000 and 85,000, might be followed by a significant drop. They call it a retracement.
Retracements are like the market catching its breath after a sprint.
Yeah.
You see them all the time. A price shoots up, people take profits, and then it settles back down a bit before potentially going higher again.
This source is even putting a number on it. They're saying Bitcoin could drop back down to 80,000 before making another run at 100,000. That's a pretty wild swing even for crypto.
It is, but here's where the technical analysis comes in. This source is looking at things like chart patterns and trading volume to support their prediction. For example, they might point to a specific formation on the chart, like a head and shoulders pattern, which often signals a reversal in price.
So it's not just a random guess, they're actually basing it on observable data. That makes sense. But even with all the fancy charts and patterns, no one can predict the market with 100% certainty, right?
Absolutely. These are just educated guesses based on historical trends. And it's worth noting that retracements don't always mean a buying opportunity. Sometimes they can signal a deeper market correction.
Okay, so we've got one source riding the Trump effect wave, predicting a supercycle, and another source throwing in a reality check with the possibility of a retracement. It's enough to make anyone's head spin.
The key is to remember that both sources offer valuable insights, but they're just pieces of a much larger puzzle. The crypto market is a complex beast influenced by so many factors: politics, economics, technology, and even social trends.
Speaking of social trends, let's not forget about altcoins. They're kind of like the wild cousins of Bitcoin, always up to something interesting. This source even brought up the idea of altcoin seasons, times when alternative cryptocurrencies actually outperform Bitcoin. They think we might be on the verge of one.
Yeah, the altcoin market. Always unpredictable. Now, Bitcoin dominance basically means what percentage of the total crypto market cap is held by Bitcoin. When Bitcoin's dominance drops, it often means money is flowing into altcoins. This usually happens after Bitcoin hits a major milestone, like reaching $100,000. Investors start looking for the next big thing.
And get this, they're predicting a cascading effect. First, Bitcoin dominance dips. Then the big name altcoins like Ethereum and Solana surge.
Yeah.
And then hold on to your hats. The meme coins, AI tokens, gaming tokens, and even those real-world asset tokens have their moment to shine. It's like the entire crypto world takes turns on the dance floor.
It's certainly a colorful way to picture it. But while the idea of an altcoin season might sound exciting, it's important to remember that this is a highly speculative scenario. We've seen this pattern before.
Yeah.
But past performance isn't a guarantee of future results.
Right. So maybe we should approach this with the same level of skepticism that we're applying to the Bitcoin prediction.
Absolutely. The altcoin market can be just as volatile, if not more so than Bitcoin. There's potential for big gains, but also for scams, pump and dump schemes, and projects that just vanish overnight.
Well, I think we've given ourselves a lot to think about already. We've got the Trump effect, the super cycle debate, the potential for a retracement, and now this whole altcoin season thing. It's a lot to digest.
What's crucial is to remember that none of these are guaranteed. The crypto market is like a roller coaster. It's exciting, but it can also be a bumpy ride.
So what do we do? Just sit on the sidelines and watch it all unfold?
Not necessarily. But before we dive into any strategies, let's take a step back and talk about how to navigate this crazy world of crypto information. Because let's be real, it's a minefield out there.
You're telling me. Everyone's got an opinion, a prediction, a hot tip. How do we cut through the noise and figure out what's actually worth paying attention to?
Well, the first rule of Crypto Club is don't rely on just one source of information. Think of it like building a balanced diet. You wouldn't eat only pizza, right? You need your fruits, veggies, whole grains.
So instead of binging on crypto Twitter, I should be reading industry reports, academic papers, maybe even checking out what the skeptics are saying.
Exactly. The more perspectives you get, the less likely you are to get swept up in the hype or fall for the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement, especially with all these big predictions flying around.
Okay, that makes sense. But honestly, sometimes it feels like you need a degree in cryptography just to understand what people are talking about. All that technical jargon can be really intimidating.
I hear you. The crypto world definitely has its own language, and it can be overwhelming. But there are plenty of resources out there that break things down in plain English. Look for websites, blogs, or YouTube channels that are geared towards beginners.
And what about those times when I just can't wrap my head around something? Is it okay to ask for help?
Absolutely. In fact, I encourage it. The crypto community is, for the most part, very welcoming and supportive. There are tons of online forums and communities where you can connect with experienced crypto enthusiasts who are happy to answer your questions and help you learn.
Okay, so diversify your information sources. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And avoid information overload by finding resources that speak your language. Got it. But let's talk about something that's been bugging me. We keep hearing about these huge price predictions and super cycles. How much of that is based on actual adoption? And how much is just pure speculation?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's like trying to separate the signal from the noise. There's definitely a speculative element to crypto, no doubt about it. But we're also seeing real-world applications starting to emerge. Think about decentralized finance, supply chain management, even digital art and collectibles.
Right. And it's not just tech enthusiasts and early adopters who are paying attention anymore. Even governments are getting involved. Some are exploring central bank digital currencies, basically digital versions of their national currencies.
That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But it shows how seriously governments are taking crypto. They're realizing they can't just ignore it, and they're trying to figure out how to regulate this new ecosystem, which, let's be honest, is no easy task.
It feels like things are changing so fast. What's revolutionary today might be outdated tomorrow. So how do we stay ahead of the curve?
It's all about being adaptable and constantly learning. Don't be afraid to experiment, but always do your research. And remember, there's no shame in taking things slowly. You don't have to jump into the deep end right away.
Speaking of jumping in, let's circle back to those altcoins. Our source predicted that once Bitcoin hits 100,000, we could see an altcoin season. But with so many different altcoins out there, how do we choose which ones to invest in?
That's a great question, and it's something that even experienced investors struggle with. One approach is to look for projects with strong fundamentals. Ask yourself, what problem is this project trying to solve? Does it have a real-world use case?
So it's not just about jumping on the latest meme coin bandwagon.
Meme coins can be fun, and they can definitely generate some buzz, but they're often driven by hype and speculation. They might pump in the short term, but they usually lack the substance to sustain long-term growth.
Okay, so we're looking for projects with a purpose, not just a funny name or a cute mascot. What else should we consider?
Look at the team behind the project. Do they have a proven track record? Are they transparent about their plans and goals? And of course, do your due diligence on the technology. Is it innovative? Is it secure? Does it have a competitive advantage? These are all important factors to consider.
This is starting to sound a lot like traditional investing. Are there any crypto-specific red flags we should watch out for?
Definitely. One big red flag is a lack of transparency. If a project is being secretive about its team, its technology, or its finances, that's a major warning sign. Also, be wary of projects that promise unrealistic returns or use high-pressure tactics to get you to invest.
Okay, so strong fundamentals, a transparent team, a solid technology, and a healthy dose of skepticism. That's a pretty good starting point. But let's be honest, even if you do all the research and pick the right projects, crypto is still inherently risky, right?
Absolutely. It's a volatile market and there are no guarantees. That's why it's so important to manage your risk carefully.
So how do we do that? Give us the cheat codes for crypto risk management.
Well, there's no magic bullet. But here are a few key principles. First, never invest more than you can afford to lose. It sounds obvious, but it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and overextend yourself. Second, diversify your portfolio. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
It's like that old saying, don't bet the farm on one horse race. Spread your bets and you're less likely to lose everything.
Exactly. And finally, remember that this is a long game. Don't panic sell if the market takes a dip. Ride out the waves and focus on your long-term goals.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here. From navigating the information overload to evaluating altcoins and managing risk, it's been a crash course in crypto literacy. But before we wrap up, I want to bring it back to that Trump effect. Do you think his return will really have a lasting impact on the crypto market?
It's hard to say for sure. His previous administration was definitely more open to crypto than some others, and he's got people in his circle who are known to be big on innovation. But the regulatory landscape has shifted quite a bit since his last term.
So even if Trump himself is pro-crypto, he might run into some roadblocks from regulators.
Exactly. Governments around the world are getting more serious about regulating crypto. They're worried about things like money laundering, tax evasion, and protecting consumers.
It sounds like a political tug of war. On one side, you've got the potential of crypto to disrupt the financial system, and on the other side, you've got governments trying to maintain control.
It's a balancing act for sure. And how it all plays out is anyone's guess. But here's the thing. Even with all the uncertainty and volatility, there's a bigger picture to consider.
You mean beyond just the price of Bitcoin going up and down?
Exactly. At its core, crypto is about more than just making money. It's about challenging the status quo and exploring new ways of doing things. It's about decentralization, transparency, and giving individuals more control over their own finances.
So it's about a shift in power from centralized institutions to a more distributed network.
That's one way to look at it. And that shift has the potential to impact not just finance, but all sorts of industries and aspects of our lives.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. We could be witnessing the birth of a whole new economic paradigm.
It's definitely a possibility. And whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting to dip your toes into the crypto waters, it's an exciting time to be a part of it.
Absolutely. So for all our listeners out there, what's the one piece of advice you'd give them as they navigate this wild world of crypto?
Don't just follow the hype. Do your own research, think critically, and remember that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Great advice. And as always, thanks for diving deep with us today. Until next time, stay curious.